I've always trusted doctors. I assumed he would take his oath and do no harm. It was the 6th month after surgery before I realized this man has been dragging me along and lying to me. This man has done something seriously wrong, and he's been being completely terrified and horrified of what my future life was going to be. Oh my God, am I bedridden for the rest of my life? How do I take care of my wife and kids? I walked into this hospital, and I never walked out.
Anyone close to me thinks that I'm likely summarized. I'm ready to become a cold-blooded killer. This is not just a doctor having bad days here and there. This is somebody who very serially is injuring people. And so it does make you question, was he doing this on purpose? Does he want to harm patients? Is he using this as a tool for some sort of pleasure?
Something you hear about in the movies. The guy comes in, sweeps you off your feet, everything's gonna change for the better. It's hard to believe that is the same man. It's just that knowing Chris personally, I don't feel like he was a murderer. It breaks my heart. That's what's heartbreaking. And no matter how bad you wish you could change the past, you cannot. So I thought that was like done with about crying, but it's not. I've buried it all up until this point. I guess when you start digging, it's gonna dig up emotions. Because nothing about it. Maybe the beginning, but that is it. First time I met Chris was at a strip club in Memphis. I was an exotic dancer. I was drinking an appletini, just, hanging out with the friends. Then he introduced himself as Dr. Christopher Dunch. He was very sure of himself. He was very charming. He could walk into the room and take over the whole room. And we hit it off pretty good and ended up going back to his house. He had his science award. He had his PhDs on the wall. And so the disco ball was hanging in the corner of his office. First I was like, why do you have a disco ball in your room? We drank a little bit, and then we were dancing under the disco ball in his office, listening to music. I just thought this was this is a dream. Who wouldn't love this? Within that first week, I ended up pregnant. It was always something that I wanted, was to become a mom and have the family, the normal, the house, the car, the family, picture perfect. This is like fairy tale. It's something you hear about in the movie. Off your feet, everything's gonna change for the better. I think I just relied too much on that. And I probably shouldn't have, but I did.
I can't walk properly, can't write properly. I'm maybe 10% of the man I used to be. Maybe. I've been a mechanic really since I was 17. I enjoyed what I did. Enjoyed the people I worked with. I made more than enough money to keep a roof over our head. After many years of the pain and finally coming to the conclusion that I had to do something about it, I went to my insurance carrier's website and found a neurosurgeon that was in network. And there was a nice write-up about Dr. His website talked about all the great things he had done and how brilliant he was. So I said, well, okay, let's give him a call and set up an appointment, and that's what I did.
My approach to patient care is I treat at all possible.
It was pleasant. He liked to describe everything he had done medically and how proud he was of himself. He seemed to, a little arrogant, but I expected that from a neurosurgeon. Surgery to fix it. Hundreds, if not thousands of them are done every day without any problems. When you're in that much pain and somebody tells you that the surgery is going to take 100% of it away, you can't help but say, please, let's do this. When I get there, the nurses are taking all my vitals, getting the IV started. This was the first time I'd ever had surgery in my life. I was extremely nervous, extremely scared. The only thing I quit being a baby, quit being a scaredy cat, whatever. But I still hadn't seen Dr. Dunch. He never came by to see me, and he didn't come in and see me before they put me to sleep, which I thought was strange. I really just remember staring up at the ceiling and praying. I was just praying, God, please let it go. Make sure this turns out well.
I think of all of the cases that I've ever done, this one stays with me the most. The first time that the DA's office heard about the Dunch case, there actually had already been some civil lawsuits filed. They were trying to say, what he's doing is criminal, he's hurting people, we need help stopping him. We decided we needed to know every single patient that Dunch. He operated on 38 total patients. And as I begin to look through their files, we realized, oh, wow, he has injured most of them. Ultimately, I think what I figured out is that 33 out of 38 patients were injured by Christopher Dunch. I don't think you can look at that number of 33 out of 38 patients being injured without being appalled by it, without being shocked. This is something that should at least be looked into, not ignored. It seems like there needs to be a real investigation done here.
I just was like, unimaginable. It was more like a dream. I felt like he came in and he was like, everything that I didn't have before, like everything that I've always wanted would happen. I was very excited. It's going to be a great life. But he was excited. Who wouldn't be, though? It's like your whole world just opened up. You're out of grad school, going into one of the biggest hospitals in Dallas, Plano area. He was excited, very excited. When we first moved to Dallas and Chris started his job at the hospital, I would get up to go out the door. He was already up at like 5:30, going through files, going through charts, looking at x-rays. Chris's dreams was to become the best surgeon in Dallas. I thought, everything was going well for him. But once, he hired his nurse, everything changed. I with the drugs, I didn't, see the alcohol. There were nights where him and the assistant would go out, and they wouldn't get home till 2, 3 in the morning, sometimes not at all. One night in particular, I remember being up kind of late and kind of upset with him. I looked out the window when they pulled their trunk, and then I saw his assistant kiss Chris. And that's when I knew. I was really upset. He took me away from the world that I knew, the world I was comfortable in, put me in this new world, and then kind of like let me hang out there. I had nothing else to my old life. I mean, what was I supposed to do?
I was in so much pain. I practically started crying. I was on the verge of tears, yes. It was a horrible pain. I was thinking I was going to die. I didn't know why the pain should be so rough until just a few minutes later when Dr. Dunch came in and he said, okay, and I could only wiggle the toes on my left foot. I was like, God, that's not good. And he said, okay, wiggle your fingers. And so I noticed that I couldn't move my right hand. Oh my God, me, am I bedridden for the rest of my life? How do I take care of my wife and kids? I'm horrified of what my future life was going to be. See, at first, of course, I thought I was going to be going home. But now that I'm paralyzed from the neck down on my right side, I'm not going anywhere. I walked into this hospital.
I don't think we knew whether it was criminal or not. Is this just a malpractice kind of thing going on, or have we stepped into the realm of somebody who is maliciously hurting people? We looked into his background a little bit, and he had come out of the University of Tennessee as physicians out there in spine surgery. He graduated with honors. His resume is fantastic. He did a lot of research. And so, on paper, he looks really good. Really makes you question more, how did we get where we're at? I think when you go meet with patients, it gives a sort of vulnerability for you and them where you begin to feel like you have a connection. You talk to one patient, and that patient tells you about how they spend their entire days in a wheelchair. Another patient tells you about how for Dunch did and the pain that he's suffering, that his skin literally sheds itself. A lot of the patients he misdiagnosed what the problem was, and then once he gets into them, he doesn't know where he's at in their body. Or he wreaks some other kind of havoc when he's in there. He hits arteries, he cuts off nerves, he puts screws into places where they don't belong. The stories are heart-wrenching, and there were times that they had endured that really began to weigh on me that this is much bigger than I had originally expected. Almost every single person that he puts under the knife, he is doing something wrong. And so it does make you question, does he want to harm patients? He's using this as a tool for some sort of pleasure that he's bringing himself. This is not just a doctor having bad days here and there. This is somebody who very serially is injuring people.
He had the PhD. I knew he was smart. I knew he was actually a neurosurgeon. And I assumed he would take his oath and do no harm. He told me that it was a bruising of the spinal cord. It's going to take it a while to, just to swell 100%, just like you were. He told me it would take probably about 4 weeks. Approximately 4 weeks, I'd be back to 100%. But every follow-up I went to, he added more time to it. Jeff, it's going to be 3 months. It was the 6th month after surgery before I realized this man has done something seriously wrong, and he's been lying to me. That's what I felt. When I went to my 6-month follow-up, I said, I want all my records. I want my MRIs. I want my x-rays. I said, I've got to go see somebody for a second opinion. Visit after visit. Jeff, you're going to be good by the next visit. And it never happens. Well, other people may say some bad things about these MRIs. I said, what? He got up to leave and he grabbed all the MRIs and x-rays and started to walk out with them. I mean, I was so shocked, I just immediately stood up as fast as I could, which isn't very fast, but I pulled him back and said, no, sir, those are mine. And he stepped back into the hallway, went out the door and left. On the way home, I'm nervous because of the way it ended. Because I knew that if he wanted those records back as bad as he did, there was probably something I needed to find out. At that point, I knew I had made a huge mistake. Very much knew I'd made a huge mistake.
He's like, what are they going to say in the medical society? You're pregnant, we're dead. I was like, I don't even know who you are. That's when I realized that I should be digging in a little bit more to find some answers. I want to know, what is it that I'm living in? I looked through the computer history. I looked through the cell phone. That's when I found the email. My medical records were accessed from my OBGYN. And somebody requested my record, which is where Chris's parents live. And then that's when I realized, Chris is trying to send me to live with his parents so I can have the baby. And I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. Yeah, you're completely trying to move me out of the life you just gave me. I was disgusted and furious, and the more I dug, the more I found, the more I hated. I thought it was going to be a good life, but it wasn't.
He'd been able to get away. He'd been able to get away with making somebody a quadriplegic, and hadn't really suffered any consequences from any of that. How does somebody cause so much damage? That really became a big question. The location. He was moving the hospitals that he was actually working and doing his surgeries at. We were able to figure out, well, he's getting kicked out of these hospitals. They won't let him, practice there anymore. Some of the stories that we heard were that he would show up and he would be sweating profusely and his eyes would be dilated. Then any drugs at the time. Dunch himself had indicated that he used neurostimulants before surgeries, and of course that would be something like cocaine. There's no real way nationwide or worldwide to prevent somebody like this from just going somewhere else and continuing to practice. So the only way to do that was to give him a criminal conviction.
A few months later, I finally got to see another doctor, and he told me what had really happened inside. And I was devastated, to say the least. He said there's no surgery that can correct a torn spinal cord. My heart fell to my stomach. I had no idea that my spinal cord had been cut. He literally brought it up on his computer and showed me where my spinal cord had been cut open. He said something to me that I have not forgotten to this day. He said, "I'm sorry, Jeff." I just couldn't believe it. I was heartbroken. I was scared again, because now I know that I'm not going to get back to 100%. I just felt like my world was coming to an end. I cried right there in his office. He hung his head in shame. He said he was embarrassed that Dr. Dunch was in the same profession he was. And he also told me about how Dr. Dunch has many patients that have had bad outcomes. And he had already been trying to work on some patients to see if he could help them out. Shivers down my spine, my goosebumps came up on my arm. I said, this is not right. He should not have still been practicing when he got to me. So I was mad that there was this many people already hurt and that he was still allowed to be a neurosurgeon. It made me think that this was deliberate, probably not malpractice. This is more than likely a sick, evil, twisted individual who somehow made it through med school.
When I arrived home after having my oldest son, all of my clothes from the room. I am feeling so many emotions at this time. I was angry. I was sad. I've been alienated from everyone that I've known, anything that I've known. I became totally dependent on him at this time. I'm in this situation. I don't really see how an easy out right now. I really don't. I'm apart. One of the days I was going to drive Chris to surgery We go outside to find that our vehicle had been taken apart. There was no tires on it. The drive shaft had been broken out. I was like, why would somebody do that? He was pretty upset. He was like, I don't know who would have done this. Another incident, there was a phone call of someone saying something to the effect of, are you ready to die?
Excuse me?
Name. And I'm just like, what in the world is going on? This is out of control. Obviously, there's something going on. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm sure it's going to reveal itself, and I don't want any part of it. I almost instantly got my stuff together and I moved out.
I had to tell my boss. I had to tell him the truth. I'd been telling him all along that I was going to be better, that my spinal cord was going to get better and I would be able to go back to work. So I just had to tell him the truth. I started crying. I said, that counts. I said, I am what I am. I said, this is it. It's not going to get any better. I'm not going to be able to climb those ladders. I'm not going to be able to carry that 25-pound tool bag up and down those stairs. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh, it was terrible. It was the best job I ever had.
By the time he got to Mary Eford, he had just killed 2 people, and there were a couple of other patients where he knew he had hurt them. And so he would have known that he was going to hurt her, and therefore never should have done the surgery at all. The day before, who was not doing well, she ended up having a stroke and wasn't getting enough blood to her brain. And so really, he should have been treating her. Instead, he decides to go into Mary Eford's surgery. He cut off one of her nerve roots. He put a excruciating pain. He also put the implant device in her muscle instead of the bone. He kept drilling over and over again, so there are multiple holes in her muscles. One doctor described it to me as trying to put screws into raw tuna. Everybody in the operating room was telling him that he did not have the device in the correct spot. None of these things should ever happen in a surgery, not in a surgeon's entire lifetime. Because it was an injury to an elderly, the jury would be able to consider all the way up to a life sentence. It was important to us that he never be able to operate again, and a life sentence, of course, would prevent that forever.
Basically, the reason you're here right now today, okay, is you have been charged with aggravated assault, okay, and 1 count of injury to elderly.
Yeah, actually, I know this was going on. I actually planned to bring all my documents to the DA directly.
Oh, did you?
And let him have it. I know exactly what's happened, and none of it is criminal.
Okay.
I know it's alleging, and none of it's true. It's easy defendable.
I think his ego is large enough that he thought he could talk his way out of it. I don't think he was processing the fact that he was about to spend some quality time in the Dallas County Jail for these charges.
The surgery went fine, and there's no real explanation for why they happen in surgery. Part of the time it's on his consent form. They expect that's possible. So I kept him in the hospital for 2 or 3 days, and then I put him in rehabilitation. He recovered 95% and he went back to work. Yeah, absolutely.
He seems to, in some ways, live and does not align with what actually had happened to the patients. The reality of it is that Mr. Cheney has had his spinal cord partially cut and he can't feel half of his body, and that he's never going to be better.
He recovered very rapidly, got most of it back. He was able to go back to work and have a normal career.
I think he has cyst and probably a sociopath, unable to recognize that he was the one actually causing the damage. It was always everybody else's fault. And I think that's very scary. It's definitely not the kind of person that you want being a doctor, sticking, a scalpel into your back and opening you up.
Until one of my girlfriends that I used to work with called me and was like, "Hey, are you okay? I heard your son's dad's on the news for abusing an elderly lady." I was just blown away. It all kind of came crashing to a reality. It was just very much of a shock. Chris very much kept me from the medical side as much as he could. I had no idea. I believe the phone call that we received that was a death threat was from a patient's family member. Looking back on it, I'm thinking maybe somebody did it to keep him from going to surgery.
So this is an email that Christopher Dunch had written. Anyone close to me thinks that I'm likely something between God, Einstein, and the Antichrist. Later on he says, "You, my child, I'm ready to leave the love and kindness and goodness and patience that I mix with everything else that I am and become a cold-blooded killer." I think when he says that he's a cold-blooded killer, what he's trying to convey here is that he's the kind of person who can do anything that he wants. And that's kind of what his behavior was. He began to do whatever he felt like, ignoring any of the consequences. We jury to consider.
I did not believe for a minute that they were really going to be able to pull this off. I was pretty sure he was going to walk. It doesn't bother him at all. He did not look disturbed one bit on it. I'm sure he didn't think he would be the first guy in Texas or possibly the United States to be busted for what he did in the operating room.
We, the jury, having found the defendant, Christopher Daniel Dunch, guilty of injury to an elderly individual as charged in the indictment.
It wasn't until that jury came back in with good about the whole situation. Guilty. And you're like, oh, okay. We're finally seeing justice. And I'm sure all those other families are feeling the same way.
I've always wondered what the motivation is here. I think that there are a lot of factors that played into it. I think he was very greedy and had big dreams in his head of, how much money he was going to make. I think he had addiction issues, right? I believe that he did a lot of drugs and alcohol. And so I just think all of that really added up to somebody who to operate on patients despite the fact that he was hurting them. He didn't care. I felt like the patients needed somebody to stand up for them. You can't ever forget their stories. They haunt you. I don't think that you can investigate a case like this and not become a little bit emotionally invested, because you and they're relying on you to bring them justice. And they finally won. They finally got their justice.
I don't think that there's ever really been a time that we've sat down and talked about it. He just said, I didn't do those things, not what they say I am. He's almost unrecognizable. It's hard to believe that it's the same man. Maybe he didn't know what he was doing, and he didn't know how to say, I messed up, or it was an accident. It's just that knowing Chris personally, I don't feel like he was a murderer. Yeah, I get every action has a consequence, but maybe, not life in prison. Life is a long time. And when we go to visit Chris, it's very emotional. My son knows that, it's actual prison. And if you do bad, then that's where you go.
He wants to go today. And he's like, you're in jail. And then he starts telling us everybody to get out. And he's so sad.
I know he feels sorry. I know he's regretful. I know he's sorrowful. But we can't change anything. So, it hurts. It breaks my heart that's what's heartbreaking. And no matter how bad you wish you could change the past, you cannot.
I'm permanently disabled. My two oldest daughters had children. And I have children in my arms. The grandson is the 9-year-old. And he's just like, Papa, can you throw the football with me out in the backyard? There was anger. There was severe anger. And it gave me bad thoughts and stuff. For some reason, it dawned on me, Jeff, you're holding in this anger. And I was finally like, he's where he belongs, Jeff. Let it go. No, I forgive Dunch. And I try to forget about him because, granted, every day I'm reminded of him, but you'd be surprised how little I think of him anymore. Hardly ever.
It's blood everywhere. It's blood everywhere. Lorena!
I didn't even realize I called after her. I didn't even know that. It was just a horrible scene. Horrible. Here's the thing, Mama is gone. I couldn't find any words. When I came back in the house, I think I hugged them. Because I couldn't even figure out what to say.
Everything changed after that day. I fell to my knees, I cried, and just asked her to wake up. At that point, when I look at that picture, I see the man that took everything away from me. It's ruined, my relationships, my friendships. In a way, it's kind of like he took my life away already.
Gary had planned. But in an interview, he says, I've never seen anything like that, only in TV and the movies. I've never seen it in real life.
How many times do you think you stabbed her?
The blood on the floor was immense. It was just smeared. It was just bad. Frankly, I hope there's a special circle in hell for people like Gary Green.
Well, it's from my mom. This is kind of reminds me of how sassy she used to be and her ability to radiate her positivity on other people. She inspired me to try to be very confident and determined as far as my dreams and my goals. But this definitely brings back some memories. My mom was a lot of personality, like her own little vibe, always kind of just like looking out for other people, just always had a smile on her face. My mom had me on her 20th birthday. She was a very young mom, and she was like 27 by the time she had all. My mom had a lot going on. Like, she was a teacher, and then she had to juggle us, because I was the oldest. I was the babysitter, the dishwasher. Jared is a very expressive person. He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Nobody dares sit to us eat in the kitchen. Besides, they'll see how beautiful we are.
There was always like this sense of like positivity and joy that was like contagious. They were always there. Whether we argue, whether we fight, we still are family, like we're brothers and sisters. When Gary moved in, the atmosphere changed. It felt like he kind of just tried to get dominion over us, like more of like a you need to respect me thing with him. Hey! Gary was one of those people that whooped you and didn't care where he hit you. If it hit your arm, hit your butt, hit you in the eye, it is what it is to him.
Now, let's go.
The abuse, the aggression, the mental increasing. I think my mom did defend us against Gary to the best of her ability, but it just kept escalating. And I think it was because my mom started to get more and more fearful of him. I knew he was aggressive and I knew he was abusive, but I never would have labeled him as a murderer.
There's blood everywhere. My name is Tasha. Can you please get somebody else? The call is in already. They're coming. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're at 4844. Are you inside their house?
I didn't even realize I called after her. I didn't even know that. Oh my. Them poor kids. Oh, them poor kids. She did. She really loved them. And it was nothing she wouldn't do for them. JT asked for a cup of sugar, and Jared said, "Where that fine girl at?" And I said, "Huh?" I said, "You talking about my daughter?" "Yeah, she fine. She gonna be my wife." And then JT said shit, and they started like pushing at each other. I think Jasmine may have even jumped in and said, "Both of y'all ugly." Lord have mercy. That's a good picture. Gary wasn't a good fit for her and her family. I felt like Lavita could do better than Gary due to the fact that he didn't have real good interaction with her kids. I would hear him in a rage towards the whole family, from the 6-year-old all the way to Levita. It's like not paying attention when all the signs were there. Why didn't I call the police the first time I knew something was ugly going on inside the house?
Spending 10 years in homicide, we see a lot of terrible things. I try to forget a lot. This case, there isn't forgetting this. On the evening of September 21st, 2009, my partner and I were working the evening shift when this call came in from patrol officers requesting homicide detectives to respond to a crime scene. So when I walked in the house, this is your typical middle-class home. You know, everything is orderly and neat. Big screen TV, comfortable furniture in the living room. And then we go into the master bedroom where it's in disarray. On her back, deceased. Definitely something very horrible happened to her. Clearly, you know, she's a victim of multiple stab wounds. The master bathroom, going in there, my gosh, the blood on the floor was immense. It was just, is. You have a small child bound, lying on the floor in front of the tub. What happened in that bathroom is just terrible. The young daughter laying against the bathtub is bound, but we see a stab wound. There's no sign of blood. There's no trauma to this little girl that we can see. We don't know why she's dead. We just know she is. So we're trying to interpret what happened here.
A lot of it I've tuned out because I don't want to remember all of the ugliness about it. It took a long time just to get it out my head. I had my food and I was watching TV, and then we had a beat on the door. Someone was like beating. When we got to the door, it was Jared and JT, and JT was crying just uncontrollably, and Jared had the phone. He was talking. He said, "I'm talking to 911," and I'm like, okay, like I don't even know how to take this. So I take the phone from him. I'm on the phone with 911, and I'm telling the lady, I don't know what's going on. Let me go in here and see what's going on. Stay right here.
Inside of 3844 now? Yes, ma'am. I'm leaving back out. She's not breathing. I'm just so purple. Breathing? No, ma'am. Who's not breathing? The mother or the 6-year-old? The mother. I can't even find the 6-year-old. I'm scared to be in here just in case you come back because I don't know what's going on. Oh, my God. He's so cute.
To this family, when I came back in the house, I think I hugged them because I couldn't even figure out what to say. I couldn't find any words. How am I supposed to tell them kids that their mama is gone? It was just a horrible scene. Horrible.
as I'm about to start heading down, our hallway, I hear Jared start screaming out of nowhere. When I seen him come around the corner, it was hard to breathe. His eyes, it was like just this really like dark, fierce look in his eyes, like he was out for blood.
You never listen. You're gonna listen tonight, though.
He has Jared like by the collar like this, and is just like walking him with the cutlery in his other hand. They're coming towards me. He comes in, tosses Jared, locks the door, kill y'all. I was scared. I was terrified. That look and that feeling that he gave me when he said it, it was just like, okay, I need to respond. But I could not find the words to say anything. Gary responds, and Gary, like, grabs a knife.
Shut up!
Says shut up real loud and just stabs Jared in the stomach. I'm, like, watching the blood kind of, like, come, just absorb into the shirt. When he stabbed Jared, I gave him the biggest push that I could, like, the biggest push that I could, but he's huge. But it got him off Jared. Jared was trying to talk us out of it. Jared was like, oh, we're too young to die. If you love us, you wouldn't kill us, and we won't tell nobody. And he's, he's trying his best to talk our way out of it. Eventually, he was like, I got something to show y'all.
Get up. Get up. Let's go.
As he unlocks the door, first thing you see is my mom just like sprawled out on the floor. And her body looked discolored, like kind of like purplish. And I remember the first thing I did was kind of like ran to her and like cried. At that point, I just kind of like shut down, and I just like, I fell to my knees. I cried and just like asked her to wake. I know this is a dream. I know this is a dream, and it wasn't. And then as I look up from crying over my mom, there's Jasmine beside the tub with her hands taped behind her back and her feet taped together. And something like broke in me. It wasn't even like traumatizing anymore after that. At this point, it was just like, this is sick. He hands me my mom's phone. He was like, call the police when I leave. And Gary just looked at him and me, and he told us, he was like, I'll tell y'all, say see you later, never goodbye. He drives off.
It's vicious. What he did. What was he thinking? Why was he doing these things? We had 3 handwritten letters. 2 letters that Levita wrote to Gary, pretty much saying that this relationship's over, this marriage wasn't working out, they need to go their separate ways. The 3rd letter is Gary's response to Levita, which we found on the bed. This is the letter that Gary wrote to Levita that we found on the bed in their master bedroom. It has a big blood stain on it. You asked to see the monster, so here he is. The monster you made me. There will be 5 lives taken today, me being the 5th. Pray heaven, if not, I will burn in hell forever. frankly, I hope there is a special circle in hell for people like Gary Green. The letter on the bed is a significant piece of physical evidence for us. To have somebody pen their intent ahead of time, Gary had planned on killing everybody. Levita, Jasmine, JT, Jarrett, and then himself. That's what was in the letter. And that would have been the case if those two little boys weren't able to talk Gary out of hurting them. We're very motivated and fine. We don't know what his state of mind is. He knows what he's done. We've got to get an arrest warrant for him written as quickly as possible and start looking for him. We're going to notify everybody in the surrounding areas within our city who we're looking for. We're going to start a manhunt. We needed to find this man.
When we opened the door, our mom was laying on the floor with blood all around her, all on her dresser, all on her shirt, and all on her shoes. And our sister, her little sister, had her arms taped behind her back, and there was blood all around the bathroom, and there was nothing we could do about it.
I heard that since the night I said it. I have suppressed a lot of memories. It is still trauma that I have to deal with. Everything changed after that day.
Gary Green is a violent person. 275 is a danger to our officers as well as anybody else that comes across him. What is he willing to do? And who knows? Thankfully, his family did the right thing. The very next day, September 22nd, came into our southeast substation, and he surrendered himself to an officer working the desk.
Like I said, I got a whole lot of unanswered questions, and I'd like to talk to you about all this. Are you good with that?
During the interview of Gary Green, obviously getting his confession was number one. We have a ton of evidence. But there's no better evidence than a confession. Than Gary Green sitting across from me in the interview room in his own words explaining to me what he has done. So when he comes to me and he's in that interview room, I was trying to just be straight with him. And,
Know that the man is always in control. Right. She always tries to control me. She doesn't know. Telling me that she won't leave me and she wants to move on with her life. Right. So this was yesterday. She's telling you that in a letter form that she wants to move on. So once you tie Jasmine up in the cord of the tape, you pick her up and carry her into her mom's room? Yes. Okay. And she asked me, she had this shot bullet on her face. I bet.
in my opinion, tying Jasmine up and parading her in front of her mother, showing Levita who's running things. He was almost proud of what he's done. I showed you, right? Here's your daughter all tied up. Look what I did.
How many times do you think you stabbed her? Are you talking like a couple times or about 30 times, you think?
Jazz is watching all this from the freaking bed, right? So think about this little kid's, the terror in her eyes, seeing her mom attacked like this and she can't do anything. what was going through Jasmine's little mind during all this time, and the fear in her heart. You know, Jasmine knew what was fixing to happen. And that's like, because she knows what's fixing to happen to her little, and she can't do anything. She's helpless.
What happened to her? I just feel the bathtub. Yeah, but yeah, I need to walk. I still see that everything. And I know something like that in real life, all on TV.
He's holding her head down, and she's gurgling, and the bubbles are coming up. And then he's got to turn his head because he, you know, and in an interview he says, I've never seen anything like that, only in TV and the movies. I've never seen it in real life. You caused that, right? And, you know, my gosh. You know, where were the angels for her that day? To be a professional police officer and homicide detective, you can't go there most of the time. You just can't. You know, but in this case, how do you not go there with this little girl? You know, what a tragic ending to her little life.
Lavita never admitted to me that there was abuse going on in the home. My personal opinion is coming from a person who's been abused before. You just keep the hope. You keep the hope that today when he wake up, it's gonna be different. Today he won't push me, face. But I did empathize with her situation. I saw me in her, and I saw, as far as me, myself, what she could be after Gary. Lavita made the choice that they were done. And she was deciding to move forward with her life to raise her kids on her own. He took that choice from her, though. At the end, she stood up and decided, I don't want this anymore. But she just didn't get to live through it because he took that from her.
I was very afraid of Gary. He kind of like instilled that fear. What happens in this house stays in this house. Actual thing, because my mom started to get more and more fearful of him with every altercation, because the lengths that he was going with every altercation would get greater as well. When I knew something was really wrong was when she came home with the cast. Anytime I brought it up, she didn't really want to like talk about it. But I could tell that it was a wound that was inflicted. And with my mom being hurt or something, it was like a big elephant in the room that she didn't want to poke. And I always knew why that was. I have put myself in her shoes and I have thought a lot about it. And I can understand fear. There's all these factors that go into just like up and leaving, you know. So I feel like she tried to stick it out in order to get to a position where she could just up and leave. It's just unfortunately by that time it was too late. anger a little bit, but definitely disgust. My really only question is why Jasmine? You know, with my mom, I know it was out of anger, but it takes out the confusion because I know the reason. But with my sister, it's kind of just like she was 6 years old, yeah. It was very confusing to me for a very long time. She didn't do anything. She literally was just there, wrong place, wrong time. A lot out of me. Why Jasmine? She had a lot more life to see, you know, like a lot more life to see.
I remember, and I stepped out. I remember walking down like about 30 steps just to hurry up and have me a cigarette because I was just so mad. I actually cried. These kids have to relive this all over again. They had to relive it when they saw their mom. They had to relive it going through court and having to talk about it all over again. We had to talk about it 3 times with the district attorney. We had to talk about it with the investigator. We had to talk about it with the police when they came. Over and over and over. Gary is more of an animal or monster than a human being. And then you ask yourself how you're supposed to forgive that. How do you fit words in the dictionary for the type of person that I think he is?
During Gary Green's trial, all his prior bad acts, his prior abuse of women came out. We learn about the abuse of these other girls. He choked them, stabbed them. He had strangled with cords. She actually provided us photographs of her ligature marks on her neck. It's not surprising that he abused Levita and the children at all. That's his MO. That's kind of what Gary Green's about. Now, did Levita know about his prior abusive relationships? I don't think so. And Levita is a very strong and independent woman. Little Jasmine. School picture. The one thing that really brought trial was when the state introduced a video of Jasmine speaking. So, they did get to hear from her in the trial.
I too sing America. Nobody dares sit to us eat in the kitchen. Besides, they'll see how beautiful we are and be.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people teary-eyed that day, I'll tell you what. Yeah. No little girl deserves what she got. She should be graduating high school. The jury and handed him a death sentence. The death penalty is for cases like this. It's only for the most extreme, the ones that it's true justice for. He got what he deserves.
Does Gary Green deserve to die?
He took a life. He took 2. Destroyed 2. I'm not sure if that's equal punishment, because that's final for him. Once he's dead, that's final for him. But these two kids that's walking around right here, what do they get from him dying? It's not gonna bring their mom back. It's not gonna bring their sister back.
Actions have consequences. If you take a life, your life is taken. And that's just, how the world works. I just want him to feel the same pain they feel. I'm really gonna be there. And if they tell me, I'll put the needle in them myself.
Do I think Gary Green is evil? Yes, without a doubt. To tie up a 6-year-old and force them to watch their mother being attacked, dying, and to make her watch what's fixing to happen, what her little mind was coming up with, what horrors we're going through, up until and including her death. It's, you don't want to go there. The only thing in my interview that caused Gary Green was we had him turn his head and he was drowning Jasmine, and that was it. I hope that act haunts him until his sentence is carried out.
Knowing everything we know now, are you mad at yourself?
The abuse looks like, and I know how you hide the abuse. You tell everyone that there's nothing going on. I just knew how I was looking inside of Levita's house. I knew there was abuse going on there, but I would not call 911. I didn't call social services. I didn't go to the school and say, hey, No, it's like I played a part in the cover-up because I didn't want to see the family torn apart. To me, it makes me feel like I failed them. I told both of them I was sorry. Because knowing what I know, seeing what I saw, I'm saying I'm putting them first by keeping them together, when in actuality, I did them the most harm by not saying anything.
When I look at that picture, I see the man that took everything away from me. Gary took away my relationship with my mom. He took away my relationship with my sister. He took away my love for myself. And I don't open up to people because I don't want to let anybody in to betray me. It's made me insecure. It's kept me away from my goals. It's ruined, my relationships, my friendships, my life away already. I've had 3 suicide attempts. A lot of the times when I felt suicidal and had my attempts, it was because of the fact I just felt it was the quickest way to get back to them. It is a struggle dealing with it because every day thinking, how sad my life is, how, they're gone, but every now and then, if I feel like I need advice, who am I supposed to turn to? And those are the times when it's the hardest. Or like with my kids, when I feel like I need parental advice, I can't reach out to my mom. So those are the times when it's harder to deal with. And those are the times that I struggle with. It's my daughter, but it's like my little homie. She's a very sassy character. I definitely see Jasmine when I look at my kids. My daughter Addison looks just like Jasmine. Like, it could be twins. She's very joyful and very forgiving. She's always positive. What'll be a journey with them. And I think that's the best part is your kids are going to be the people that are always going to be by your side, regardless of who you lost in life, who's hurt you, who you've hurt. Your kids' loyalty is always going to be with you as their parent. And that never changes.
The projectionist arrived in town on a Tuesday that smelled like old rain and frying oil. It came at dawn on a low flatbed truck, anachronistic, black-painted, and humming with a small engine that sounded like a throat clearing. No one in the market could remember seeing anything like it before. A compacted caravan of black wood and brass, with shutters like eyelids and a tall chimney that smoked faintly, as if whatever it held had been breathing all along. They parked it where the old Wolfson lot used to be, the one with the cracked asphalt and the graffiti roses, and a boy from the bakery, who always had flour on his forearm, saw a man step out. He was thin as a slat, with a coat that hung too long and a cap low over his brow. His eyes were pale like isinglass. Behind him, through the window of the caravan, someone had strung a strip of film like bunting. He called himself the projectionist. He rolled out a small wooden board and nailed an invitation to the telephone pole. The letters hand-cut from newspaper and pasted on with a glistening glue. "Come see what you remember," it promised. "Come see what you could have been." Curiosity in small towns is a currency as heavy as gold. People who had never seen the opera and others who had came because the church bells were chiming too late and the market was closed for reasons of grief and grocery. They came in coats buttoned against the thin October cold, and they stood in a line that knit itself around the lot like a ribbon. Mara came because she had nothing better to do. She was 31, with a job at the library and a habit of making tea for people who were too polite to refuse it. She had moved back to her hometown after her mother's funeral and found herself inheriting a life. She had not asked for an attic full of things that smelled of lavender and mothballs, a small brick house with a sag in its roof, and a silence that fit like someone else's gloves. The projectionist's sign read like an answer to a question she hadn't known how to ask. "Come see what you remember." Inside the caravan, the air smelled of ozone and caramel. The projectionist took her ticket, an old bus token, and slid it with a small gold blade. The interior was smaller than she expected, more intimate. Rows of narrow seats faced a screen that hung from the ceiling like a curtain. Bottles of soda chilled in a wooden crate. Beside them sat a stack of photographs, all black and white, curled at the edges. "You know how it works?" he asked when she sat. His voice was like paper, rustling in a box. "No," she said, "but I'd like to." "You pay with what you remember," he said, and he smiled like someone reading from a script. "Some memories are small coins in a jar. Some are heavier. Decide what you want returned, and the film will show you. But be careful. The film always wants more than it shows." Mara felt something prick her skin. She thought of the box of letters in her attic, the ones she had not read since she returned from university. She thought of the last argument she'd had with her brother, words flung like pebbles, until something glassy shattered. She thought of her mother at the kitchen table, hands folded as if in prayer, and the suddenness of breath that left her. She had moved back to catalog absence. Maybe she had come to pay the debt of forgetting. The lights dimmed. A projector attic, and humming like a living beetle rolled into life. Its wheels spun, and the film threaded through like a pulse entering a body. On the screen flickered a photograph of the town, the bakery, the post office, the willow tree near the river. The film smelled faintly of smoke as it warmed. At first the reels showed the town as it had been, an ordinary life stitched together by ordinary days. Then the film leaned inward, as if it had a lens in its heart frames focused on Mara. A little girl chased a dog down a lane. A teenager slammed a car door and left with a promise. A woman, Mara's mother, bent over a sewing machine and hummed a tune that Mara knew without trying. The footage was precise in the way memory is precise, not a literal copy, but a portrait painted by kinship. When the camera caught Mara's face in a window, she felt a warm, quick sorrow hit her chest, recognition as a physical thing. Then the screen shifted. It lingered on a man, her brother, Tom, leaning against her father's shed, head bowed, a cigarette between his fingers. She had not seen this footage. It seemed to be a scene half remembered, reconstructed. The sound in the caravan was pressed close, someone coughing, a distant radio. Mara watched herself at 20, at 18, that at an age she hadn't reached in the present. The projectionist ran the film like a priest lighting candles. The audience murmured, but the caravan was a cave of hush. People nudged each other when they recognized themselves in frames. Children laughed when their birthdays rolled past. An old man sat with his hand trembling, watching a woman who was no longer in the world feed bread to a little child. The film reached the night of the funeral. She watched herself stand in the back, hand gripping the pew as if it were a cliff face. Her mother's face was pale and exact. The camera held the moment between breaths, and Mara felt nausea rise, hot and metallic. The projectionist's fingers moved slower, as if savoring the form of a sentence. Then the film stuttered. The frames doubled. The sound became a low, savage hum, like bees that had forgotten how to make honey. The screen darkened, then lit up with a view Mara had never seen, a room she recognized only because her mother's. Needlework lay on the table. There was a silhouette in the doorway, no face, only the slit of a coat. The figure stepped into the room, and the light cast its shadow long and wrong across the table. It was then that Mara realized the film showed not just what she remembered, but what the projectionist had collected, the town's private moments kissing in the dark, weeping over a grave, stealing from a safe and rendered them as a bouquet of small combustions. The film gathered what people thought they had hidden and made it public, but in a way that felt personal. The caravan was a confessional without a screen of brine. Mara wanted to stand up then, to walk out. She wanted to leave before the real spilled anything beyond what a living person should know. But the caravan was small, and the air thick. Someone near her sobbed, and she felt cruelty like gravity. She sat. The projectionist fed the projector with his hands, slow and deliberate. He seemed absent, as if the film were a thing that chose him and not the other way around. On the screen, the darkness sharpened into a sequence she did not expect, a backyard she had known well. The washing line with the same faded towel, her father's shed, and standing in its doorway. Not a shadow, but the exact silhouette of the man who had come on the trucksamine holding a camera. The figure's head tilted as if listening, and then it nodded once, decisively, and lifted the camera to its face. Mara's throat closed. The film was showing things no one should have recorded. The projectionist had a way of turning privacy into performance. He made acts that were once private into art and interrogation at once. You profited, someone whispered behind her. It could have been anyone, and that underscored the intimacy of the caravan. To witness memory was to be complicit in theft. The projectionist didn't answer, but the film answered for him. It rewound and sped, stitched and tore, moving through scenes like a seamstress who had grown tired of being exact. He showed her the night she had said goodbye to Tom's argument over the old house keys. The slam of the door, the small cruelty of a last word left like a pebble on the shore. But then the film went further. It showed Tom leaving town at dusk, the road slick with rain, and a second car pulling alongside. A handsomeness of a man, unfamiliar, reached out and helped Tom transfer a small crate from his trunk into the other car. The faces blurred. The footage had the wobble of something filmed from a moving train. The crate was labeled in Mara's mother's handwriting. Her pulse tightened. The caravan seemed to tilt. In the audience, someone swore softly, ears pricked like a forest. The film unspooled more. Men meeting in warehouses, late-night exchanges, a ledger of names scrolling in frames like credits of a film that wanted to name the world. On the screen, her mother's hand traced the ledger's page, the ink a braid of receipts and dates. The implication was direct and quiet, like a hand closing around your wrist. Mara felt her stomach fall into her knees. The film was accusing, but not in a pulpit way. It was simply showing. It presented secrets as if they were ordinary objects, and ordinary objects, when laid out, could become instruments of accusation. She left the caravan that night gagging in the cold like a fish pulled from a river. The street light at the corner made a halo in the fog. The crowd dispersed like birds when a cat moves through the grass. Mara walked home without noticing the route. The town looked the same, but she felt the topography of it altered every alley a witness, every window a lens. That night she went into the attic and opened the box of letters. She read past the words she had read months ago into a place. She had sealed with the firmness of someone who wants to shield an open wound. There, between epoxy receipts and old postcards, she found a ledger tied with twine. Her mother's careful script labeled it inventory. The first names on the list were commodities: cans of soap, bolts of cloth, jars of preserves. But further down, in a slower hand that tilted like a question, were other names: Mr. Havers 50, Joyce Carltono charge, Tom Rourke small favor. Mara read until the house spun like a top. Her hands trembled as if holding flame. She had loved her mother, and had also come to her with the impatient hunger of a child. She had assumed thriftiness, and economy of kindness. She had not thought her mother could be ledger keeper to a different sort of market. The next morning Mara went to the feed store. Greg, who had a face like a well-weathered bench, listened to her without surprise. "Everyone's been trading in their reasons for years," he said, pouring her coffee as if the town's crooked ledger was as ordinary as rain. "You pay somebody a favor, and you keep their secret. Nobody asks where the favors came from. You just keep them. Why would my mother?" Mara hesitated. She could not say aloud the shape the ledger suggested. "To survive," Greg said. He wiped his hands on his apron. "Different ways. Lines of work that keep a family fed. You didn't see it. Most of us don't. We think we live in one story and not another." The projectionist continued to show films. People lined up, some to see their childhoods, others to confess in images they couldn't otherwise face. The caravan grew a reputation like mold, subtle and inevitable. A woman who'd watched her husband's confession of infidelity threw herself from the wooden platform outside the caravan and walked away without a face. A young man who watched a scene of himself stealing from his boss stopped coming to the factory. Mara found herself drawn back, against her better judgment, to the caravan on a rainy Thursday. She sat in the same seat. The projectionist smiled like a man greeting a coin that had returned to his palm. "You came back," he said. "You showed my mother," she said, unable to keep the accusation from her voice. "I show what is given." He threaded the next reel with a hand that trembled but did not falter. "Sometimes people bring me their own recordings. Sometimes I find them where the world misplaces them. What do you do with what you take?" He paused. The hum of the projector was a small animal in the room. "I make them legible," he said. "I make them shareable. People need to see their lives as a piece of film sometimes. It helps them understand the cuts." Mara thought of blades and hands and of her mother stitching. She thought of the ledger and the crates. The caravan felt like a tribunal that did not call witnesses, but instead exposed evidence like fruit on a table. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally, because the question had turned the corner in her chest and could not be kept in any longer. "Names," he said simply, "and a memory. One for the film. One you will not mind seeing again." She found herself answering before she could stop herself. "What if I don't want to give names?" The projectionist's smile thinned. "Then you will keep them, or they will keep you." The night's film began with Mara as a child at Gainmity knees. The sound of a train passing and unrolled into a sequence she had never imagined. A series of late-night meetings by the river, the exchange of packages, the turning of hands like salaries. Faces were clearer now. One of the men who received a crate in the film was not a stranger, but the familiar jawline of the town's mayor. Another face belonged to a woman who ran the dry cleaners. The ledger's list scrolled like a ticker, names and sums, favors and dates. The film showed how favors looped into debts and debts looped into secrecy, and how small towns maintain themselves on an economy of hidden accounts. Mara watched herself haggard and angry, confronting her brother, finger pointed like a question. "What did she do?" she yelled in the film. The room in the reel answered with the coolness of a machine. Tom said nothing, only looked away, and Mara watched the weight of his silence and like a hand on her shoulder. When the film stopped, the projectionist closed the projector with a sigh as if tucking in a child. The caravan's light came up slowly. People emerged in twos and threes, some relieved, some raw. Mara sat frozen. She had paid with the memory of a backyard meeting and the ledger's rusted list, but payment there had been no balance. The projectionist had shown her the world as a system and not an anthology of saints. In his films, everyone was both sinner and accountant. She left the caravan with a ledger in her mind and a nausea that did not leave. The town continued its life, indifferent as a river. People went to work, closed shop, kissed in secret. But now Mara felt each movement as if it had an accounting tick. She watched men she used to think ordinary fold their hands like those who keep dangerous books. Then, one night a week later, Mara received an envelope thrust under her door. The paper was cheap and mottled. Inside was a single photograph smudged at the edge and a note in her mother's angular hand. You were always meant to see. Keep what you must. Beneath the note was another ledger entry. Her mother's script spelled out a name Mara had not expected Tom Rorkian beside the name a sum. But not currency, return. Her hands shook so hard she could not hold the paper flat. The notations threaded like veins. She went back to the caravan, though every rational part of her wanted to bury the photograph in the ground. The projectionist met her at the door, and this time he did not ask for a memory. He offered her something more dangerous, a trade. You can watch and understand what the town kept, he said, or you can become the one who keeps it here, so others won't have to. It is a mercy to hold burdens for others. Mara's head spun in the caravan's low light. The offer shone like a coin in the sun, brilliant and molten. To hold a town's secrets so it might preserve its face of civility. The idea had the shape of heroism. But heroism, she knew now, was often ledgered in silence. Why me? She asked. Because you are willing to see, he said softly. Because you come back. Because you have been given a ledger and you can read it. The proposition unrolled like a map of a place she had just left. To accept would be to inherit her mother's booked inventory, the favors, the balances. To become the town's private accountant of sins and kindnesses. To refuse would be to continue living under their weight, watching them like a person watches a wall for cracks. Mara thought of Tom and his silence. She thought of her mother's knitting hands and ledger entries. She thought of the photograph pushed under her door. The caravan's hum felt like a heartbeat in her ears. She took a breath and nodded once. The projectionist smiled, not cruelly, but as one who had predicted the weather. He opened a drawer and took out a small black book, its cover plain, the pages blank as new snow. Write what you take, he said, and write what you give. The ledger will learn your hand. The film will remember. She signed with a pen that bled ink like a confession. The caravan's door closed behind her, muffling the town to a distant sound. The projectionist fed the projector one more reel, but this time there were no images for the public to see. Instead, he showed Mara what keeping looked like, a room of shelves, each labeled with names and dates, a narrow window where footage could be reviewed, a leather-bound book where favors were recorded as if they were seeds to be planted. You will have to decide what to keep and what to return, he said. It is heavy work. People expect you to be kind, but kindness is a tax. Sometimes you will be asked to conceal an act of mercy. Sometimes you will be asked to return something that corrodes the soul. You will be lonely. You will be necessary. Mara thought of her mother's hands, and for the first time she understood the ledger not as a ledger, but as a language of survival. She thought of the way small towns traded in quiet complicities to keep themselves standing. She thought of Tom's silence, which suddenly felt like a ledger entry of its own, unpaid, unfinished, a debt that had a shape. She left the caravan with the black book in her handbag. The projectionist packed up the caravan the next morning without fanfare, the truck humming like an engine settling into sleep. He left a card in the slot of his service window. The projectionist. Keep what you must. Years passed like film rolling between steady hands. Mara settled into the role the caravan had offered, and in time it became her life. She learned to read people's faces like pages of a ledger, and to sort favors into columns, labeled kindness and cost. She would receive envelopes slid under doors, photographs, small objects, each one a seed to be cataloged. Sometimes she returned what she could. Sometimes she kept it tucked in drawers, like secret bulbs that might bloom into storms. She learned that mercy could be a burden, and that secrecy could be a protection. And she learned, in a trade she had not asked for, how to keep a town moving without breaking it. But secrets have weight. They rust in the ribs and corrode the joints. The black book grew thicker. Her hands, once quick to tie up strings and mend hems, found themselves knotted. There were nights she woke with her heart an echoing hollow, as if the caravan's projector still turned in the dark, and the reel had a voice that would not hush. One winter a child came to her door with cheeks like apples and a tear in his laugh. He had found an old photograph, a scrap of a moment, and he wanted to know if it could be returned. Mara read the ledger, weighed the cost, and decided to return the photograph carefully. She walked to the child's house and handed it over. The child's face bloomed like a dawn. For a week Mara felt a warmth she had not known since her mother's hands smoothed the hem of a shirt. But then a paper appeared, slid under her door, a note thanking her for her mercy, and reminding her that every act of return left a ledger entry elsewhere. It is a peculiar thing to be a town's memory keeper. People will love you for mending what you can, and hate you for what you cannot. They will bring you their guilt and their gratitude, their photographs and their confessions. You will hold them in your hands like fragile things. In exchange, you will be lonely in a way that carves hollows where laughter once lived. It is a duty with no public parade, an invisible office that asks you to be both saint and censor. Years folded into years. Mara learned to live with the caravan's absence as she had learned to live with the ledger's weight. She married once and not to anyone pivotal, a man who liked books and could boil eggs properly. They had a child. Tom visited sometimes, his mouth softening in a way that suggested a man who had carried a debt until it cooled into something he could set down. The town hummed on, secrets layered like dust. When Mara grew older, her hands began to tremble as if from the motion of too much accounting. One evening, when the sunset hit the river like a coin, she sat at her kitchen table and opened the black book. Her handwriting had changed with time, more careful, with capitals like small bridges. She wrote the names of the last things she had agreed to keep: a photograph, a ledger, a child's note. At the bottom of the page she paused and then wrote her mother's name, underlining it twice. She realized then the infinite smallness of the caravan's bargain. The projectionist did not want to ruin the world so much as to teach people how to recognize that they were part of one. He had not asked to be worshipped. He asked only that someone make order of what the town could not keep in its head. The lesson had been brutal and private. To remember is to be entrusted, and to be entrusted is to be altered. When Mara finally could no longer bear the ledger's weight alone, she took the black book down to the river. The current caught the sunlight like a blade. She wrote one last note in the margin, brief as a breath: keep what you must. Then she folded the book and placed it in a small wooden box, sealing it as one seals a letter. She walked to the place where the caravan had once parked and left the box buried beneath the cracked asphalt, its lid meeting the soil like a promise. She did not see the projectionist again. Sometimes she wondered whether he had been an ordinary man with a caravan, or an arrangement of the town's needs given shape. But the caravan's lesson remained: memory, when traded and tended, can hold a community together. But it was also a weight that could break the keeper. On her last night, as the moon wound itself thin and the town breathed in sleep, Mara sat by the window and watched the willows' reflection in the slow river. She thought of film-off frames that show light and shadow, of reels that turn until they fray. She thought of the ledger and the black book, and how each town must find a way to contain its ghosts. In the morning her son would find a note and know what to do, or he would not. The town would go on. People would still call each other in the evenings and keep each other's secrets, in exchange for small kindnesses. She died with a photograph tucked in her hand, a picture of her mother and a younger Mara, both laughing on a platform as a train arrived. The moment caught in a light that made everything seem possible. The black book remained buried. The caravan never returned. But sometimes, in the sound of a projector's hum on late nights, when films were shown at the school hall, someone would swear they could hear the soft boot of a man walking down an aisle, the faint rattle of film, and a paper voice that said, keep what you must. And so the town kept its lights on and its ledgers closed in drawers, and people went on making economies of favors and keeping the fragile architecture of civility intact. They loved their dead in public and hid their debts in private. The projectionist had taught the Meef a lesson can be taught without protest: that memory is both currency and cure, that preservation demands cost, and that some people will always be asked to carry what the rest of us cannot.